Hey guys, welcome to Green Chat. My name is Cleeze, and this is a place where you can ask me questions and I can give you my opinion and hopefully formulate your own on the upcoming MMO, Pantheon Rise of the Fallen. Today we're going to be talking about the iconic abilities of each class. There's some of them that we don't know, but the ones we do know, we're going to go into more depth on those. Now, in the beginning, I was kind of not really for iconic abilities, but I've really come around on the idea, and I think they're going to be a great thing for the game, and I'm very excited to talk about them. So, with that, let's get started. Hey guys, hope you're doing well. Before we jump into today's topic, I want to do little Green Chat updates of things that I screwed up in last video. So one of the things I screwed up was how I was saying quadrinity, but I think it's quatrinity is how you pronounce it. J. Timms pointed this out to me. I even spelled it wrong in the title, and that's mostly because Google gave me that red line, and I followed what it said. I was like, yeah, maybe it shouldn't be red. Let's make it not red. That was a mistake, so I jumped over to the frequently asked questions, and I guess the IP is owning this one as far as this word goes, kind of like Shakespeare in a way. You know, just making words theirs. Visionary realms, one step forward. So, yeah, it's quatrinity, not quad trinity or quadrinity. It's quatrinity. And that's it. Let's move on to those iconic abilities. All right, guys, so let's jump into iconic abilities. What we're going to cover today is the classes that we do know their iconic abilities and how they're going to function for the most part. Something that we don't know is there's like 4 or 5 classes that we have no idea what they're going to be. And, I'm just going to kind of theorize on those a little bit and, kind of go off on a little tangent with that. But also, I'd like to see what you guys would think of the classes that we don't know in the comments below. That'd be cool. I'd be interested to read that. So, with that, before we totally jump into each class and start going through that, I really wanted to cover in previous titles where iconic abilities came into play, or iconic-esque-like abilities came into play, and how they were really useful, and not too crazy and overpowered. Or in some cases, they were crazy overpowered, but they really don't, they weren't necessary. They weren't necessarily necessary, at least in my examples, but they did make some encounters much easier, and they did make some environments much easier to cover. So just a couple of examples. Most of them are from World of Warcraft, because I've spent most of my time in the past, 10, 12 years playing World of Warcraft, so there you go. But one great one from EverQuest would be Rangers tracking in EverQuest. So Rangers tracking was super cool. Druids also had tracking, but it was a nice ability. But it made quests, trying to find these hard quest mobs, that would normally be a very big chore, very simple. So you'd almost like hire out rangers. Some people would hire rangers to sit in zones. Poor rangers, they always got the short end of the stick. But people would be like, hey, go hang out in the zone, I'll pay you like whatever to find this mob for me, wait for it to pop. So they're hitting the track button just looking for it. And then also, of course, monks had feign death. That was currently a iconic ability that's going to be in Pantheon Rise of the Fallen. And stuff like that. And you know how that works. You feign death and then creatures reset. It allows you to break up packs. Now, more intensively in World of Warcraft and Blackwing Lair, which was, I think, the second major raid layer in vanilla. I'm not sure if it's second major, but anyways, it doesn't really matter. It was a pretty difficult raid, and you had to be pretty cool to be there. I happened to be a rogue at the time, and there was a room in there that had these suppression devices, and rogues could disarm the traps to allow the raid to move through that room much easier. It was a challenging room, and if the suppression was active, I personally never got to experience that because I was a rogue. I think you pretty much had to bring a rogue to disable these traps, and they would always, it'd be on a timer, they'd reset, so that was one thing there. Another thing would be Paladin Bubbles in World of Warcraft. That would be an iconic ability thing to a Paladin, at least in WoW, and that would allow you to completely negate abilities in the game. Basically, there'd be a circle of damage. Somebody would have to stand in it to take damage. The Paladin would run in there, blow his bubble, and be immune for the most part, and there would be a valid target in the bubble, and he would absorb the mechanic completely and pretty much blow that mechanic out of the water many times. There's other times where he would get a debuff and it would stack any bubble and that would remove that debuff and stuff like that, and it was super OP. Now, does that mean you had to bring a Paladin? No. I mean, in most of my raiding, I did not raid with a Paladin, so we had to work around that. It was just you had to do the mechanics as intended versus cheating with a bubble. No big deal. Now, another one was the Warrior Leap. So the Warrior could leap a short distance in World of Warcraft, and this was iconic to the Warrior. They were really good with mobility and stuff like that, but this leap would allow them to do interesting things in combat or in encounters that would completely negate abilities. Specifically, one challenging one was on, and I think is a Imperator in what's that expansion? Warlords of Draenor. basically he would put a debuff on you that would lock you in place and you would explode. But what you could do is right before you receive the debuff, you could leap away, you would get it in midair, you would still be moving, you wouldn't be locked in place, and then you would be well out of the group's way to explode. So those are just some minor abilities from different games, mostly WoW, but they completely impacted encounters in a very drastic way, or very powerful way, to make them much different and play out differently depending on what classes you had in your group. And I think iconic abilities in Pantheon vs. the Fallen are going to kind of roll out in the same way. Depending on who you have in your group, it's really going to change encounters, change dungeons, change your environment, and so on. So let's crack into each class and their iconic ability. All right, so in no particular order, I'm going to go through the classes here and their iconic abilities, and you guys can be like, hey man, this is going to be cool, or it's not going to be cool. You can think. A lot of people right now are kind of really cautious about this, but I think the more I think about it, it seems like a really cool thing to me. So let's start off first with the Cleric. We're not going to go in any particular order, but the Cleric, probably a lot of people already know this, but the Cleric is Manifest Pillar Shield. High-level Clerics can manifest, place, and even carry massive pillar shields. These huge luminous walls of energy form towering immovable barriers that, for a limited duration, no enemy can pass. But if desired, the Cleric can choose to sheath his weapon so that he may carry this pillar shield short distances to better position before resuming the fight. Now, what this means to me is you can create a pillar potentially and make an LOS in an encounter. So if there's going to be an explosion that's going to go off and you need to LOS yourself, it means you got to run back to the room, find something to hide behind. Clerics can just make a pillar and you can jump behind that. So that's actually pretty awesome. Also, let's say you have a choke point. You have a room that has two different choke points, you have like two different sides to a room with two doorways that go through to either room, and you could potentially create a pillar in a doorway blocking people from going through it. Maybe this is just kind of guessing what how these things could affect encounters, and it makes them go along the long way to get to the group. Now, what's the point of that? You could have plenty of reasons for that. Maybe funneling mobs all in the same direction for an easier chance to CC them, or AoE, or getting them in different positions to really allow the casters to clump in certain areas, especially when you're dealing with dispositions in the game, stuff like that. But I think the Cleric's Pillar is going to be super powerful, especially in raid encounters where LOS would be desired. You can create LOS out of nowhere, basically, which is actually a very strong mechanic to have at your disposal, and especially being able to move it around. We'll have to see more on that, but I think it's really cool. Now, next we're going to move over to the Warrior. The Warrior has a battering ram. You summon immense physical strength and you rush forward, breaking through certain barriers in the environment that have grown weak or unstable. The higher your strength, the more types of barriers you will be able to break through. Now, I was thinking a lot about this. You can think about like earth elementals raising rock walls. You could smash through those, maybe. Also, when you're in a dungeon, there could be like weak doors that you could smash through to get to different areas in the dungeon more quickly with this Warrior ability. And that's kind of, a lot of these things I kind of thought about, what could they do in the game to really make this something cool? And that's pretty much it. But with that, especially in encounters, if walls are being made and the Warrior's able to break through them, that would be a very nifty way of dealing with that encounter, especially with a Warrior. And if you didn't have a Warrior, at least with any of these abilities, I think none of them should be necessary. You should be able to win the encounter, although much more difficult without any ability from a specific class, but maybe in some cases do make it required. Who knows? We'll see where that really goes. But that's where I get with the Warrior breaking through walls is, stone walls being created by elementals of some degree and then smashing through it, or maybe in an encounter all the doors close and you're trapped in a room and now a Warrior can get you guys out as an escape. Stuff like that. We've already seen mechanics like that where the room closes with a door and then now you're stuck inside and you're forced to deal with the boss in this smaller area, and now you can maybe use more area, more environment to deal with that encounter. We'll have to see. So the rogue has a length of rope, lit down a length of rope which your group members can climb. So with this one, I was thinking, what's the big deal here? It's kind of a big deal, but it's kind of nifty. So I was thinking, hey, if the rogue can let down a rope, he has to be able to get to that position. So does it really help you out? Are you just going to climb up? He's going to drop the rope, make it easier for you. I was thinking of examples where this would be like interesting. And one would be if you go into a dungeon. Think about all those dungeons you play, like dungeon crawler type games, where when you go into the dungeon, the exit of the dungeon is actually right above you in a little cave. It like kind of wraps all the way around, and there's an an exit of the dungeon at the top that gets you back out the entrance for, you know, more convenience. So basically, let's say there's a dungeon and halfway through the dungeon is actually right in front of you, but it's an unachievable position that's elevated. The rogue can sneak around, drop a rope for your group, and then you guys can get up and skip half the dungeon to save some time. So that's pretty cool. That's just something I'm thinking about. You know, these aren't things that they've been released or whatever. This is theory crafting, but we do know they get length of rope. And then also, sorry, my pants are like ridiculous. I should probably cut this out, huh? I probably won't. I'll just keep that pants in there. Got to keep the pants alive. So another thing I was thinking about is maybe in an encounter, there'll be like ramps in a room and like awnings or, you know, things in a room that the rogues can get to, drop the rope, and somehow that would help you out in an encounter where you can gain an advantageous position. Like the healers can get to a higher vantage point, or rangers, or, you know, wizards or something. You could basically, without running all the way across the room, you could easily just traverse up this rope and make something happen. I have no idea, but basically it gives you more leverage in a room that has multiple you know, heights and stuff like that as far as the room goes, and that would be inconvenient to climb without the rope. I think I'm saying that right. Basically with the rope, it makes it much more convenient and quicker to be able to utilize these perches in an encounter. All right, so next, moving on to the ranger. It looks like the ranger's iconic ability is going to be its communion with certain animals. So a couple abilities they have is Feral Scout, control of ferret, or excuse me, not Feral Scout, Ferret Scout, control of ferret to scout for a short distance ahead. Hawk Scout, you know, it's a scout for farther distance ahead from the air, outside only. Veil Striders dynamically increases your movement speed for a short time as these Veil Striders run alongside you. They also get tracking and foraging, which is pretty cool. We all know tracking does, you can, you know, find mobs in the zone and stuff like that in your immediate area, stuff like that. And then you have forage, which gives you food or drink and also gives you ingredients to create balms and tonics and weapon coatings that you can apply to your weapons and your arrow tips and stuff like that. So pretty cool, but I think the neatest thing, or what I would believe to be their iconic ability, is their communion with animals, and it may grow over time, as that's expectingly what it's kind of looking like is that the, you know, you could probably develop these into more interesting things than just scouting ahead with two different guys and then running faster with one. So we'll have to see where that goes. All right, moving on to Monk Feigned Death. So monks get Feigned Death. You stop breathing, fall to the ground, and appear dead for most creatures. We all know very well Feigned Death is likely. Feigned Death, you fall over. Creatures that are chasing you will stop for a second and be like, is he actually dead? This can actually fail, and they can keep attacking you. But what they will do is stop chasing you. They will look at you and then walk back to their point of origin in a very controlled manner. And what you can do is, if you attack a mob, at least in the past, the attacked mob would linger a little bit longer. So what you would do is you attack the guy, you run over a little bit, you know, he has some buddies with him, Feigned Death, other guys start walking back first, and then the attacked mob would linger longer, and then if he starts walking back, you jump up, hit him again, the other guys start coming too, you Feigned Death again, it, you know, creates a gap further and further, allows you to break apart these mobs to break up camps. Feigned Death is absolutely vital in most high-level dungeons, so expect that. So next we have Shamans. Shamans get slow, which is iconic ability is Baleful Lethargy. The Shaman calls upon a powerful curse, forcing a weakened dream state upon their adversary. While cursed in this manner, their target's melee attack speed is severely decreased and may become more susceptible to physical attacks. I don't think their attack speed becomes more susceptible to physical attacks. It's just a strange wording, but basically, y'all probably likely familiar with this. The Shaman gives a slow percentage to attacks of the enemy mobs. Super strong, but, you know, pretty common. So what I've found kind of interesting is some of the iconic abilities are just kind of like chill, you know, like Shaman slow. But then the Rogue's length of rope is pretty cool. Like, I guess there's some of them are... the Rogue length of rope just keeps getting me. Like, if you can do what I think you can do, it sounds really neat. And exciting to deploy and good to have a rogue, and it makes sneaking that much more valuable. Like in EverQuest and stuff like that, when you played a rogue, you really couldn't get around. I mean, excuse me, the complete opposite. You can go anywhere you wanted to, but that really didn't benefit your group. You could go like, oh yeah, there's a guy way over here, but no, we gotta, you know, fight all the way there. Now the rogues can actually go scouting a little bit and then potentially use this rope to help you guys get to areas that you otherwise wouldn't be able to without killing a bunch of dudes and you know, taking 5 hours. So yeah, but we're talking about Shamans, by the way, so heck those rogues. Yeah, so Shamans get slow. Now we're going to move on to Paladin. Now Paladin, this looked to me like their iconic ability. It doesn't really state it in the page like some classes do, but I went through his abilities, and this one looks to be the most crazy, and this is Lightful Avenger. It's a passive ability. In combat against an undead enemy, your attacks do additional divine damage and have a higher chance to critically hit. Your wrath gains from abilities will increase by X%. Your wrath gains from damage inflicted by undead will be increased by X%. Undead who strike you in combat will take divine damage, and your critical melee strikes will generate reckoning points. In addition, while in the Lightful Avenger state, all damage you receive from undead enemies will be reduced by X% before your normal mitigation is counted. The amount of damage reduced by Lightful Avenger will be converted to health and spread evenly through the group as healing. This effect cannot occur more than once per second. So Lightful Avenger, holy smokes, when paladins are fighting undead, they are an adversary to be reckoned with, on the undead side anyways. For us, they're an ally to be held up. Let's do this, Lightful Avenger. So paladins basically become BAs against undead. So the Dire Lord is, again, the same thing as the Paladin. I kind of had to guess to see what it would be, and I picked two abilities out of its lineup that is likely its iconic ability. Now, things are always, I'll say it at the end just to kind of caveat it, but things are always open to change. So, we're so early in development. Not so much so early in development. They've really got a lot down the road, but things can change just at a whim. They're like, this definitely doesn't work. After alpha, they put it out, and alpha testers are like, yo, this is crazy OP. There's no reason to bring anybody else but a paladin. They'll be like, all right, let's change it a little bit. Completely, maybe, for the most part. So, Dire Lord might be one of these two. So one is Sanguine Shield. You draw out your blood and form it into a solid shield in front of you, dampening the damage of magical attacks against you for 2 seconds. There's a chance the damage will be nullified completely, and this chance will increase based on your constitution. Uses essence. The other one is Deafening Whisper. You bombard your opponent's imagination with frightening possibilities, silencing them for a short time. Uses essence. So I really feel like the Sanguine Shield is going to be their what do you want to call it, iconic ability. They seem to have a lot of magic dampening effects or resistance or silences and stuff like that against casters, and the ability to completely nullify a magical attack, the chance to, depending on your constitution, it's extremely strong, even if it's just 2 seconds, because you can wait for that really strong attack to come out and completely negate it potentially, or at least reduce its impact on you as a tank or as just a party member. All right, so that's all the iconic abilities that we do know about any of these classes. So now let's move on to the ones that we don't know, and I'm going to give you my little take on a little theory crafting. All right, so as far as the classes that we don't know, we're going to start with Enchanter, because I really feel like the Enchanter's iconic ability is going to be what we've seen in streams, and that is their ability to be a mana battery, essentially, for when they deal damage to mobs. So that's what I think the Enchanter's iconic ability will be, is the ability to mana buffer the group that they're a part of, which is pretty good. That's pretty strong. I mean, on top of all their crazy CC. So as they're dealing damage, they're giving mana back to the group. That's awesome. And it looked like, at least in the stream, that they would go through mana extremely fast if they were not dealing damage. So if they were focusing on CC, that was much more intensive for them to deal with versus dealing damage, which their damage is probably decent, but nothing like the DPS classes. All right, guys, so we're going to quickly go over the iconic abilities of the classes we do not know. Not really go over them, but hey, let's theory craft just for a minute to have a little fun. So we got Druid, Necromancer, Bard, Summoner, and Wizard on the table. Now, what I was thinking for Druid is maybe something to do with the environment, maybe weather, or maybe like summon a pack of wolves to ride on, which would probably be the gateway to mounts in the game, which would be the worst thing ever, so I hope it's not that. But maybe they put it in for a week and then take it out just for fun. Who knows? But something to do with the environment I think would be really neat, especially with the type of environment system they have, like being able to manipulate it in some way. I don't know. I don't even know how that'd be useful. I don't even know how this would be deployed, but Druid, weather kind of goes together. Maybe not. Next we have Necromancer, and I actually thought a lot about this one, and I even named it. So it's Death Holds No Quarter. This is pretty much the Necromancer will be able to res when he dies or she dies and come back to life immediately. Upon resurrection, however, they will have a very strong debuff dot on them that's ticking. Now, if they're not healed through this debuff dot, they will obviously die. So they'll have no way of keeping themselves alive unless they have outside measure to do this. And then also, if they're healed to full at any point, the dot will go away. So either you heal through the dot or it goes to full, and it's called Death Holds No Quarter. I think that would be really cool. Yeah, and if you die the second time, obviously you lose the experience and all that jazz. But the first time you die, you know, you don't lose anything. You just come back to life, and it has a really long cooldown, you know, no big deal. But it sounds pretty cool. I don't know, it sounds cool. So next I was thinking with the Summoner, maybe Portal Masters. Set up portals to have 2 different points on the game field that you can bounce between for a short duration, or you get to cooldown every time you use it, or something like that for the players. Other games have implemented this, and it was actually really neat. So maybe, you know, the Summoner's the master of summoning things using portals at their advantage. Hey, why not make them a portal master to create this little bounce between thing? Pretty nifty. Now the wizard, I was thinking maybe unstable research. They can cast a spell every once in a while, and the effects may be totally random, but totally strong. Like maybe they turn into a bomb. You know, they get all like lit up with fire and they explode shortly after. It might totally go bad. That's why it's called unstable research. But I was thinking, hey, you know, that'd be neat. Or like you know, they rain fire down on their location. I don't know why I keep picking fire. They can also rain ice. But hey, unstable research, wizards, come on, man. All right, so the bards, I was thinking, I named this one too. It's Have Another on Me. Raises the alcohol tolerance of anyone who is within your earshot of the ballad. So you sing a ballad, and they all get alcohol tolerance increased. Also charms you into liking that player more. So basically them doing this ability makes you like them more in real life and in the game. Super OP, strongest iconic ability in the game if that actually was a thing. So that's the bard. All right, guys, so that is all the class and iconic abilities that we know so far. The other ones that we don't know should be out shortly, and I will cover that at a future date. In the meantime, let me know your comments and thoughts on the ones that we do know about. Are they overpowered? Are they underpowered? And hey, what do you think about them? With that, if you'd like to see more content that I put out, please consider liking and subscribing and clicking the little bell to get notified of future content that I release. Please leave any questions you have for me in the comments below, and you can follow me at CallMeCleeze on Twitter for exciting tweeting. I'm trying to get more into the Twitter thing, and I just found out the other day you can't redact a tweet. I mean, you can delete it, but you can't edit it, which I thought was amazing. I was like, man, I made a serious grammatical error today, and I was like, dang, you can't even, wow. But anyways, no big deal. No big deal, guys, no big deal. But with that, guys, I'd like to thank you for watching, and I'll see you again really soon.